Rise up, the Dukes are back, and now it's time to rise up. The crew is back, and now it's time to rise up. The Dukes are back, and now it's time to rise up. Rise up, rise up. The Dukes are back, and now it's time to rise up. The crew is back, and now it's time to rise up. The Dukes are back, and now it's time to rise up. Rise up.
Happy birthday, Alec. We're old. I don't even know if you wanted anybody to know your age at this point.
Yeah, thank you. Just got back from dinner. Basically just used this as an excuse to not be on my diet for today. So
works.
I'll take it.
Yeah, a lot. I mean, you texted me earlier today. A lot to go over in this episode.
Yeah.
I guess we'll start with the women's basketball. Get that out of the way since that just happened. We can have the fresh reactions. Were you able to watch? You had to stop at some point. So when did you stop watching?
No, I worked from home today, so I was able to watch. I was in and out, I would say, in the second quarter. But I watched most of the first quarter and all of the fourth quarter. So, right. but yeah, I have a good gist of what happened today.
Yeah. This game kind of showed from an offensive perspective, kind of all of the skill and talent that we have on offense. Nay Bernard was probably the one that didn't get to display as much as she had as much talent as she has offensively, but Laurel Wasson came in, hit some huge threes. Meg just carried the offense really the entire way. Whenever we needed a bucket, she was either getting an assist on it or getting it herself. She was on fire from three to start this game. And Tess, I mean, she didn't have many open looks, but when she did, she buried them. So it really did show the offensive talent that we have, and we got killed on the glass. And that's ultimately what led to the downfall at the end.
Yeah, I agree with. Hard to argue with anything you just said. The offense clearly runs through McConnell, like everything just around her, pick and roll, getting open shots. She's just the orchestrator of that offense, so she played really well today. But yeah, and is it kind of weird to say that a block shot was a good look? But that's how I felt. It was a good look, but the shot got blocked
at the end with Tess.
Yeah.
Well, it's a good play call. They've run,
and she looked open, but for somehow I think it more so had to do with, was that Johnson or Townsend setting the pick right there? I don't think they finished the pick completely, and that's how she was able to get a hand on it. But there was a glimpse of, like, that was a good open shot, and somehow it got blocked. It's weird to say, but that's how I feel.
Yeah, it was a good play call. It worked at getting Tess open looks previously this season.
Yeah.
Different spots on the floor, but yeah, it was a great play call. Just shame that she couldn't get it off, but also that, I mean, what's going to haunt me is most of this season, the defense has been the strength of this team. And going into this game, both George Washington and Duquesne are known more for their defense than their offense. So I was expecting a grueling match, and then both teams just couldn't stop the other. It was absurd.
Yeah, I mean, we shot 49% from the field, 41% from three. GW, they shot 45%, 43% from three, with one more made three-pointer. So, I mean, it was only a 3-point game, so you're not going to see a big difference in the stats other than, like you said, the rebounding. And I kind of felt like, I believe the commentator said live on the call for the go-ahead three to put them up three, they said they were kind of shocked that they were milking the clock, like using so much of the shot clock and not getting a earlier shot but I think they did that on purpose because they felt good about getting an offensive rebound, even if they missed that shot.
Yeah,
So
and
I feel like that was probably talked about in the huddle.
it definitely looked like it did because the Big's reaction was not to try and grab the ball; it was to bat it straight out as far as she could. So it seemed like there was some sort of organization there on that part. Um, and yeah, I I also will say that part of the announcers' confusion was probably because you're able to advance the ball with that timeout in women's basketball. So that does kind of eliminate needing a lot of time to get a shot off. So I
Yeah.
do see her point there, but like you said, they were dominating the glass all game, and they clearly were set up to do it again because that's exactly what happened. The Big purposefully and intentionally swatted it out to her guard. Um,
And yeah, offensive rebounds lead to wide open threes. We all know it.
yeah,
And that's
and,
that was ultimately the dagger. But I think Duquesne played really well. I mean, they were down by it was
9.
getting ugly there. Yeah. They were down by 9, maybe early in the fourth or towards the end of the third. I forget what the score was going in the fourth quarter, but I mean it wasn't looking good for a while. So I thought GW was going to run away with it at one point, and credit to Duquesne to making it, a one score game, a tied game going into it, and then having at least an opportunity to tie it. So
Yeah,
GW played well. I mean, this is a tough game. Tough game.
yeah.
What are your thoughts on the season? What do you think? Do you think this was successful or disappointed? Like what are your initial reactions? You've watched this team way more closely than me.
Yeah, a little disappointed. I mean, I mentioned at the start. I feel like this team's very talented, a lot of potential. Um, so it is kind of disappointing to end this early on in the conference tournament. I was hoping that they'd be like a top 6 seed of the conference. They ended up being, I think, 10th, a 10 seed. So, and I mean, the seeding wasn't separated by much, same as the guys really, where it's just like there's a bunch of teams bunched up with similar records. Um, I'm excited to see basically. I think every player that contributed is coming back. Post game presser was confirmed by Meg, Lauren Wasselson, and Coach Burt that the intent is everybody's coming back. So dangerous for next year. Just stinks that we're already talking about next year when I felt like this team had a lot of talent where they could have made a surprise run. Um, my expectations were they were going to win this one, and then the game against the 2 seed was going to be another close game. But
Yeah.
saying that, they almost got eliminated Wednesday in a very close game against Loyola where they had complete control in the first half, and then within 5 minutes of the second half starting, Loyola chopped the lead down to 5 or 2 when they were up. Duquesne was up 20. So it's just crazy how big of swings there are in the A10 tournament. There aren't too many games that have been blowouts so far in the women's side of things.
That's what makes tournament basketball so exciting. So these types of close games and one and done. So that's why I love college basketball. But we're on the negative side of that right now. So
Yeah, I will say Meg McConnell, they did conference awards. She only made second team for all A10, and I know making like it sounds bad that I'm saying only when that's still a huge accomplishment, but I thought she was like
a
potential.
lock. It
Yeah,
sounded like a lock. I mean, I
I
don't, I'm
she
not going to sit here and be
all
like,
the stats. She led the conference in assists, led the
yeah,
conference in assists to turnover ratio, was second in rebounding as a point guard in the entire conference, averaging 9.9 rebounds a game. Um, had I think was definitely in the top 3 in steals. And she still scored points. Like I don't understand how you're not giving that player.
I don't know how many like different categories you need to be top 5 in to like, be first team.
It's an issue with the men's side of things too, where I think they put too much of a focus on the team success when they're putting the players in these spots. So I think because Duquesne didn't have as successful as a conference season, that kind of dropped where they'd put a player. But like,
What's the point of playing non-conference if like we just like those games don't even count?
It's not. It's mind-boggling that you're caring about what the team does when you're looking at literally just a player award. That's all this is. And
Right.
you cannot argue that she did not help the team in every single asset. Like these aren't empty numbers. That every rebound that she gets is important. Every assist that she gets is important. Every steal that leads to a fast break is important for a team that struggled offensively for much of this year. She was the reason the offense was even mediocre for most of this year.
This is going to sound like a really stupid question. It's going to expose me a little bit. I guess, is it conference games, or like do they only count the 16 conference games that are played, or non-conference included in A10 awards?
So I don't think they specify that. It's the coaches who pick. So the coaches like watch more intensely in the conference play because that's when you're paying attention to your opponents. But
I get that it's slightly more weighted, but
it's
to what extent?
I don't think it's eliminating all of that, but I think the coaches, like I said, I think they're rewarding the teams that are successful in picking those players to be the higher awards, which, I mean, sure, but also a person who's leading like every category, I feel like that should be a player that's above that. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, when Russell Westbrook won his MVP season, they were a 6 seed going into the playoffs. So it's not like you need to be first and, need to be first in the conference. And therefore you need then you'll have a chance to be a first team all conference player. So yeah, that part's frustrating, but she had 8 assists, 1 turnover in this game. She's fun to watch. So it's where I'm ecstatic that she comes back next year, and hopefully feel like the big goal, like off-season moves, if we're talking off-season, is get more depth. I feel like that's definitely the biggest weakness.
Yeah. Whether that be player development, whether that be just getting
maybe freshmen or transfers. Yeah.
Something to get some more spark off the bench because, you mentioned Yanni got her 4th foul pretty early on in the second half.
Which was a BS call. She was going down the low post, not even fully sprinting, and the defender just stands there, falls over, and that's a foul call apparently when you're moving to get in position.
In the 4th quarter, a defender did that on Meg. Meg was handed the ball off and then was going to cut into the paint, and a defender just moved in front of her way. They collided, but neither fell down. But that's still a blocking foul,
right? And I wrote down where is it? At the 4:50 mark in the 4th quarter, I wrote down the refs are just making way too many calls. They were too involved in this game, especially in the second half on both sides of the ball. Well, I'm not saying Duquesne got the wrong end of the whistle a lot of the time. GW did as well. They were just they're putting I don't know, just let these girls play basketball. There was a lot of ticky-tack fouls. So just from an enjoyment standpoint, I'm this is hard to watch, you guys blowing the whistle this much.
Yeah. How do you like the 76ers logo being displayed so prominently in the A10 tournament?
It was nice. I saw the 82-83 season banner hung up there. So it was a nice reminder of something I've never seen in my lifetime.
Yeah. It was interesting. The announcers Wednesday were different than the announcers today. Now, the announcers call every game that day, so I don't know how they've organized it, but it was a different announcing crew.
That seems like a chaotic way of doing it. How many hours of straight basketball is that?
Oh, it went from 11 to probably 7 today, so eight straight hours.
Oh my gosh, you'd think they'd split it up into every 2 games or something.
Yeah,
you call 2 games in a row.
Oh well. Yeah. Hey, you're earning your paycheck in the A10 tournament.
I was talking. I was I could maybe get there kind of late if they let people in late tomorrow if they make it. From work, I have to be in the office. So
they'd let people in late, Alec.
Yeah, I would assume that they would. So I wasn't too worried about it, but I was like, I really was planning to go tomorrow if they made it through.
Yeah. And hey, I mean, they put up as much of a fight as they could. They were up one with like a minute 30 to go. It looked good. And then, yeah. I mean, GW was really good. I told you at halftime. Well,
Yeah, I don't feel like
lots at
gut
halftime.
wrenching. It's gut wrenching in the sense that it was a last second shot, but not like we didn't like GW didn't deserve the win. They deserved to win this game.
Yeah.
Both teams deserved to win.
Yeah. It was a great game. Um, yeah. It's tough, tough for this season to end this early. I was really hoping that they could make a good run, but and I especially was hoping they get the 20th win to continue matching the guys almost.
Yeah, right.
Uh, and there's a weird fact that Pittsburgh Sports Now posted. This is the first year in like this is the second time in the history of college basketball that the University of Pittsburgh and Duquesne both had 20-win seasons.
I mean that's not too shocking, I guess, but yeah, that is crazy though.
Pitt's had 23 20-win seasons. Duquesne's had 15, I think is what the stat was. So it was
Okay, well in that sense, yeah, it is more equal than I thought.
Duquesne's, most of them obviously came back in the 50s, 60s, 70s era, but they had Everhart. The first time it happened was actually somewhat recently. It was Ron Everhart's best year. When we went over all the coaches, he was the one that everybody compares Dambrot to. And in that year, Pitt won 30 games. So he was still a little lopsided, but that was the first time it happened in history. Now we've got a second. And I feel like Dambrot is the better coach out of him and Pitt's guy, personally. But Dambrot would never say that. He never says a bad word about another coach.
They still have the Duke, former Duke assistant.
No, yeah, Jeff Capel's still their Pitt's head coach. In my mind, I thought you were talking about the former Pitt player who was a Duquesne assistant coach, who's no longer an assistant coach with us. Brandon Page, he's with Rutgers, I think, maybe. But
Gotcha.
yeah, or Ashton Gibbs was the assistant for us for a little bit.
So you want to move to start with Davidson, I guess?
Yeah, which was another
on the men's side, obviously.
Another harsh game to watch, and I watched that in person. And I was on the same seating side that the Fordham game was that I witnessed in person. And I texted you, I can't sit on this side of the stadium anymore. That's
fair. That's enough sample size too.
Yep, those are by far the two worst shooting performances I've seen from our team. And yeah, no, I'm going to the media side of things and sitting on that side of that half of the stadium from now on. That's more where I belong anyways, you know.
Yeah, with the common man.
Yeah, but this game my dad and I were sitting basically with the Davidson fans. That was where the seats were that I got given to me. And it was weird trying to cheer for Duquesne, literally surrounded by the opposing team's fans.
Yeah, at home in a home environment.
There was so many Duquesne fans there, but it was just that's the one spot I got put in.
Yeah,
and there weren't any students there. There wasn't a student section because spring break just started, so there's no students on campus. And honestly, I feel like it made it a little louder, which is weird to say, but yeah, no, Duquesne student section hasn't been too impressive. The alumni showed out in the few instances we could in that game.
I don't know about you, but I felt kind of I felt dumb underestimating Davidson, like in hindsight, because speaking for myself, didn't do a preview for Davidson because they stink, where they are a 500 team, which is fine, and they're Davidson, and they play like we know what Davidson is. They've had a good program for years.
Yep.
So hand up, I should have respected Davidson more personally.
I still feel like we are a great matchup against them. We just came out flat and low energy. And I don't know if it was just fatigue or what, but there was not a single player in the first half that could really get much going from an energy standpoint. I understand Davidson played great fundamental defense and they made a lot of off ball action that made guarding them a little tougher, but it really felt like the only change between the first half and the second half, and when I say second half, it really is like the fourth quarter, the last 10 minutes of the game,
Yeah.
was Duquesne finally felt urgency and decided to move it. That was really it. They picked up energy. Trey Clark finally drove to the basket, which he hadn't done all game, and it started working, and everything was going well. I did like that Day kind of took it upon himself to get the offense going. He did kind of show that leadership on offense to, okay, give me the ball, I'll figure it out. Um, he tried doing that in our last game in UMass, and it just the shots weren't falling. But him being assertive on offense is something that you and I both have wanted all season, and it seems like he's really taken that role now.
Yeah. I'm gonna fight back on with you a little bit about. I'm gonna give Davidson a little bit more credit than
It's fine.
first half at least, where yeah, we were a little flat, but I think defensively they played really well, and I don't think we attacked them the correct way offensively, especially in the first half. So you said Day took it upon himself in the second half, which is true. Um, I noticed a lot in the first half. So Brewer was trying to initiate most of the offense, and defensively, what Davidson was doing is they were hedging every pick and roll, right? So every time Brewer was running a pick and roll, they were going to hedge it. And pretty much every single time Brewer was going to try and run around it, which is one option to beat a hedge. It's not a great option, but try and beat it with your speed if you have it. Brewer didn't have it. He was getting beat and then swinging around the horn, but Davidson would get back in position right away. So I feel like if Brewer is running the pick and roll, another way to beat a hedge, right, is if you have that split second to split the hedge with a pass. So if Joe Reese is the roller and they hedge the pick, I would want Joe Reese as the pick person in those situations because he's a good passer. So if you can, Brewer is a pretty good passer too. Do the bounce pass, split the hedge, get it to Joe Reese at the free throw line, like short roll of the free throw
And
line.
Joe
And
can
then
make those
now
shots if they leave him open too. If they
he
don't,
can make that shot. He also is a great passer. So now it's what 4v3
mm-hmm.
at that point. And you have two shooters in the corner. You have Day in one corner, Trey Clark in the other corner, and then he makes that little pass on the baseline to Williams all the time to set up for an easy basket. So I don't think we did that enough in the first half. They were just defending the pick and roll a lot, and they were hedging every time. So there are ways to beat the hedge. Like they executed it really well, Davidson, but I think we could have executed a little bit better on offense, especially in the first half.
Yeah, and in the first half, I will say Trey Williams had a hell of a first half. I think he scored 6 or 8 points. Really, our only consistent offensive threat in the first half was giving it to him in the post and just letting him go to work. And defensively, he played really well. Menenga was clearly getting frustrated, and he had 2 big lapses on defense in this game. One in the first half and one in the second half, both kind of not putting his hand up to defend a 3. Second half was the true dagger that really ended the game by Foster Lawyer, but who shouldn't have even been in the game. That's a comment for later on. But he had a heck of a game outside of those two mistakes, I'll say, on defense.
Yeah, like you said, Foster Lawyer was hitting. He hit tough shots.
Yeah,
and it wasn't just him. Davidson was hitting tough shots. I think Duquesne played really well defensively in this game, but Davidson they were making tough contested shots all game long.
Well, their one guard has made, I think Dan Broad said, like 6 threes all year. or all conference play, and then he hit 3 or 4 against us. Just
Was
like
that Huffman?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who
He shot
was the one-
3 or 4 from 3 that day.
Yeah, and he got the tech deserved apparently because he must have said something to the ref after he did get fouled on a 3 and didn't get called. But I mean, you can't talk to the ref like that.
Yeah. And I will say, just to put a bow on the hedging part, I wrote down in my notes in the first half. So when Trey Clark had the ball, the pick was coming up to be set by Joe Reese. Trey Clark reads that they're already going to start to hedge. They're already the person defending him already leaning towards the pick. Trey Clark goes the opposite way. Like, if you know that the hedge is coming, you just don't even use the pick and go the opposite way. And Trey Clark's a perfect guy to do that because he has that great burst, great first step. And then he passed it for an alley-oop to Rotroff because now it's, like I said, 4v3. Yeah, you got the numbers, and then it led to a easy alley-oop to Rotroff. So those are some examples where, you can beat a hedge. Like, it's not, I mean, it is difficult as high level basketball, but there were just so many times where they made us pass out of it, and it was just rotating around the horn, but with no open shot.
Yeah. I still think that it was just the lack of energy. We couldn't get it seemed like nobody could get that quick first step to try and drive past somebody, regardless of who had the ball in the first half. Even if there wasn't a screen involved, they just couldn't create any separation, which is unlike our team, who, I mean, once they find any room whatsoever, they're ready to shoot. So yeah, that was first half was rough. Second half,
big threes by RJ Gunn, big threes by McGriff.
RJ Gunn, speaking of, it was senior day, so it was great fan support really throughout the game, including in the pregame when all the seniors were announced. RJ was the guy that like did the dunk with everybody else jumping up with him, and he missed the dunk before the game, and that was the first sign of that's a little scary.
That's true. Yeah, that's not a good sign.
And then in the first half, he did not have a shooter's touch, to put it lightly.
Yeah, and I said threes plural, but I meant there were I wrote down back-to-back threes by RJ Gunn and Quincy McGriff. Yeah. Because now I'm looking at the box score. RJ Gunn, that was his only made 3. So
Quincy McGriff, who really should be the third Trey on this team. I've convinced myself that his name is Trey. I don't know why, but he's the third Trey that we've been missing. His performance off the bench has just been so crucial, and just giving a breather to Day or Trey Clark, or just not having to worry as much when one of them does get in foul trouble, which has happened a lot recently for Trey.
Yeah. So, and including this game, I think he went out pretty early in the second half with 4 fouls. So McGriff he got a lot of those minutes there.
Yeah. Crazy. What did you flip the switch after he got the 4th foul to really turn things around offensively?
So, did you like the shot from Trey Clark to tie? Was that to tie or to?
It was to.
I forget.
That was to tie.
Yes.
Yeah, I like the shot selection. I did. It was.
Do you disagree with him taking that shot at all? Do you think it should have been Day? Do you think it should have been Brewer? 2 guys that are better from 3. I'm just trying to
listen. Trey has been our late guy, clutch, ridiculous 3 shot maker. So I'm not gonna fault him for taking a shot. I think it was open. I think he had made his last 2 or 3 attempts prior to that.
He shot he shot 2 for 6 from that from 3 that game, but 5 and 9 overall from the field.
Yeah, and I think the 2 makes were right before that because
those were clutch threes he was making.
Yeah, so I don't really have much of a problem with him taking that shot.
I don't either. I could see someone being mad, being like, if you play by the percentages, right? Day and Brewer, 2 way better 3-point shooters, but that was a good look. We've seen Trey Clark make that shot. I trust his 3-point shot in those moments. I'm comfortable with any one of those three taking that shot if it's
Agreed.
open.
And I just have to mention this: the Day corner three to bring it within one. The Coop was rocking. My goodness.
Yeah.
I wish it was. I wish there was more moments in the game where it could have gotten as loud as it did, but it got loud during that run.
And that was a great offensive possession by Duquesne because everyone touched the ball in that possession, and it led to like the most open three you can imagine, corner three. That's where everyone loves to take threes, and yeah, I felt good after that shot. So I can't imagine what it was like being there in person for it.
Yeah, and all right, we've talked enough that I can finally bring this up. Foster Lawyer should have been fouled out at around the minute 32-minute mark. The ref initially gave the empty fist 4-0, calling it on him, and then Huffman, who had already gotten a tech for complaining to an official, somehow convinced that official that no, he was the one that fouled, even though he clearly didn't, giving him his third foul, and Foster Lawyer stays in the game and then buries those clutch shots.
I don't know if I'm thinking of the right thing because I only watched this game once and it was almost a week ago at this point. But if I'm thinking of the right possession, I think Huffman did look like he was the one who fouled.
Alec, do not take this away from me.
I'm sorry. I could be totally wrong because I can't remember exactly what play you're talking about. But if it's the play that I think of,
I'm sure
there's definitely one where I think Huffman was the one who fouled. But there, and it wasn't probably just at one moment. There were some opportunities where you could call a foul on Foster, but I feel like they were making it a point. It did feel slightly they were making a point not to have a foul out. Yeah. So I'll agree with you there.
And Dan Brought mentioned in the post game that the refs don't want to foul out the star players. They don't want to impact the game that much. Now he says that, and then after the UMass victory, I flip over to the George Mason Fordham game where we definitely have a huge rooting interest, and I see all of the George Mason players fouling out. Basically, I think they were down three starters towards the end of that game, and that was where I texted you. I was like, all right, Fordham's going to win this game because all of George Mason's players were fouling out. Fordham was making their run. They were down 8, and then all of a sudden it was a tie game, and Fordham has the ball, and it's just like, dang it, they got my hopes up for nothing. And then somehow Mason gets it to overtime and then takes off. So
good for us, that's for sure. Very good for us.
Yeah, well, it could be good for us. Could be bad.
Could be bad, but I mean, we'll take it.
Found out we could now be as high as 4th and get a double bye. Can be as low as 7th if we lose the game against Fordham and the Georges, both GW and Mason, win their games. Drop all the way down to 7th. Which, I mean, if that happens, that'll just be such a weird blow, considering just from a talent perspective and watching the games, I think it's clear Duquesne's separated itself from the pack on talent-wise. They're a top 5 team.
They're definitely, if you have to rank them and the Georges, they're first.
Well above those. Yeah. Yeah.
I like just calling them the Georges. It's way easier. Yeah.
Condense them.
But yeah, I don't know. I felt kind of silly not giving Davidson the credit that they do deserve as a program, to be honest. So
yeah,
it was a tough loss. It was a tough loss.
They started off slow. They have lost. Davidson has lost so many games like that, the tight games where after Day hit that 3, I'm not kidding you, I heard 3 of the, I'm assuming, parents of players that we were sitting near, because I mean it's a far trip from Charlotte to Pittsburgh, said again. Like that was what I overheard.
Yep.
And I was so confident because of that reaction. And I looked at the Davidson bench, and they're outside of Foster Lawyer. I could tell that they were like, all right, this is happening again. We had this game won. But I didn't see Foster's face because he was sitting down and looking the other direction, and judging by his play, apparently wasn't phased at all.
No, it wasn't just him. They made a lot of tough shots. Multiple players did. So, hats off to them. They won this game fair and square. There's just one other thing that doesn't have to do with Davidson. It more so has to do with the overall season. But I wrote it down during the Davidson game. It's kind of, I wish that our point guards had the size to take advantage of when the pick and roll is switched on defense.
Yeah.
Because there's so many opportunities where Joe Reese has a mismatch, Trey Williams has a mismatch in the post, and then
we can't get the ball
to him because Brewer just doesn't have the height. Rozier doesn't have the height. And there's a lot of possessions. I would say there might be 10 possessions, like a game that happens.
Yeah.
Maybe 7 to 8, something like that. That's a big difference.
Well, in the first half,
and that's happened all season, not just Davidson.
First half, I specifically remembered this was after Trey's already proven that he's the offense in this first half. He has Huffman covering him in the post. Every other player touched the ball. They couldn't get it to Trey being covered by Huffman. It's just like,
yeah,
what are we doing here?
Yeah. And a lot of the time it's I really like Brewer. Like I do, but it's just when you're that height, like I'm including myself. I'm the same height as him. Like that's why I couldn't play ball like at a high level. So, I mean, there are limits to when you're that height in basketball. So it really sucks.
Yeah.
But we can move on, I guess.
Yeah, we'll move on to the UMass game. You weren't able to watch this one because of work, but you'll be happy to know, and I texted it to you this morning, David Dixon getting the start. And
I was so disappointed I couldn't watch when I saw the box score.
It really was kind of a preview into what next year could look like.
Okay.
And
so it looked like Rotroff and Dixon split the 5 position with Reese being sick.
Yeah, Reese stepped in for a few minutes, grabbed 2 fouls, couldn't really move as well or didn't have the energy. And I don't know if it was him, the coaches, or both realized this is
a bad idea.
Yeah, I'm just gonna sit out the rest of this one. Dixon looked great, really did, showed some great improvement from his short stints, and I mean more minutes, so you have more time to get in the flow of things. Great defensively, altered a lot of shots.
I read the box score because I can't contribute anything else from the game.
Okay.
So
I'll say this: the first half looked like we were going to go to another blowout like GW, but
that's what I saw. I think I saw the first half. Was it? I
think we were
have it up 46-30.
Yeah.
Holy shit!
At halftime.
Wow.
And
yeah, so I saw the same thing, and then when I was still at work, and I'm just checking the box score, I'm like, why is this like a 7-8 point game in the second half?
They brought it all the way to 2 points.
Wow.
It's crazy how we are the tale of 2 halves so often this season.
I see that so much in the NBA too, though. So it's so weird how that happens.
Yeah. But it's with us, you can tell within the first 5 minutes of the second half if we're going to stomp on their throats or it's going to be a tight game. And in the first 5 minutes, they dug into that lead almost completely. Like it was quick, and then we eventually pulled away at the end. I will say this: RJ Luis for UMass. I mean, he killed us in the first game. He killed us this game after we actually prepped to try to shut him down. He is just that good. He is unbelievable.
Yeah, wouldn't you be shocked if UMass kept him? I think that's how good he is.
Yeah, I think from what I understand, he's really close with Coach Frank Martin. So that is kind of,
if he's that close, he'd be like, Frank, you got to understand, I'm better than UMass. No offense, no offense, Frankie boy, but come on, we're good pals.
Yeah, he really has just in every game that he's actually played, it seems he's just gone off and has been the offense. So
yeah, 9 of 15 from the field, 2 of 3 from 3, 3 of 4 from the line, 7 rebounds, 3 steals. Oh, turn the ball over a lot.
Right. That was the part I was going to bring up. We were able to get them to
Six
turn the ball
turnovers.
over a
Yeah.
bunch. And UMass as a whole, we were able to turn the ball over a bunch. And that is really the calling card of our defense, because
and offense, really.
Going back to the Davidson game, we weren't able to turn them over.
Yeah.
Same thing with St. Louis. If we can't turn teams over, our defense gets very shaky.
I think it affects the offense a lot
does.
more, because those are just
It doesn't
easy
allow for
transition buckets.
Those free flowing threes that we just get hot off of, because we get them in transition and wide open. If those don't happen,
it's hard. It's hard, as fans, we think it's easy, but it's hard to generate a good shot in the half court offense consistently. So it's when you first force those turnovers, like you said, it's more free flowing, gives the guys more confidence, and those are just opportunities for easy buckets. I'm more athletic than you, I'm faster, I'm stronger, I'm going to finish through contact, things like that.
Yeah, and another thing that really helps is dominant bigs who can consistently get their shot. And in conference play, that hasn't been a thing with us. That's something I think that the team will work on developing this offseason with their young guys that they'll be grooming, Dixon and Barre. There are rumors going around on Twitter that Joe Reese might be applying for an extra year. So I'd be disappointed if Dixon's minutes really takes a big hit because of that. But at the same time, Rotroff's gone.
Right. Rotroff will be gone, yeah.
So, and Reese might be groomed to play the 4 next year because RJ Gunn's gone. So I don't know. It could be an interesting fit if he's able to come back. But going back to the UMass game, I'm just going to cover on some broad topics because all of our focus is now on Saturday. So
yeah,
and this is all Duquesne basketball's focus now that the women's season is unfortunately over.
Yeah,
we've got to stay focused on defense. I think that's the biggest point. If we're locked in mentally, we are so great. That's really what it is. The difference.
We can beat any team. We can beat any team. Yeah.
Truly. Yes.
In the A10.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
That's what we're talking about, just to be clear.
Well,
hey,
there are steps. If we get past the A10, then we can focus on the bigger thing.
Hey, teamrankings.com, 6% chance NCAA tournament. 6%.
That sounds bigger than 5% from last week. So
sounds big.
Yeah, and I mean, we are a dangerous team. We shoot the ball really well, and that's the team that teams need to be scared of, especially in single elimination style, where we get hot and just keep it going day after day. Who's going to stop us?
But also, like Charles Barkley.
Oh yeah, Charles Barkley's take really showed up there with Golden State. Jump shooting team can't win anything.
He always says that in college basketball. He says it more in college basketball, actually.
Yeah. Which, I mean, yes, you don't have Steph Curry shooting, so.
Hey, I've seen the best strength of a team 3-point shooting win an NCAA title in Villanova.
That may be their
second title. They were a lot weaker of a team. Their first title,
that's fair. I was thinking of the first title. With
the second title, they played. I think it was against Michigan or Michigan State. Was it Michigan? Yeah, Michigan. Wait, are you talking about the title?
Championship game, yeah.
I'm thinking of the Final Four game. They shot the lights out. Like they shot 60% from 3 or something ridiculous.
Well, they did that in the first one too. In the Final Four game, it was against Buddy Hield's Oklahoma. They just took them to the woodshed.
Maybe it was both. Who knows?
Maybe
those were some good teams. Villanova, that's a good team, man. Good basketball program there.
Won us a trivia contest back in the day.
That's right. Peak Villanova.
Yeah. But all right. So Fordham, we played them once before. It was ugly offensively. They did get us in the half court for much of this game. We didn't get many fast break opportunities. When we did in the second half, that was when our offense came to life. At this point, they had just subbed in switch starters where their athletic guard, who's apparently their best defensive player, was now getting major minutes, and he was making a huge factor. I'm hoping that we figured something out for their ISO defense where they make you beat them one-on-one, because I don't think they're going to change from that strategy. And their defense has been consistently their strength, including their loss against Mason.
Yeah, I did a deep dive preview for Fordham, looked at the numbers again, and I remember I previewed them for the first time we matched up. And this team is weird, man. They are so poor offensively. Like, for them to have the record that they do is just, the stats speak to their game as this is going to be a dogfight. Like that's what this is going to be.
And they need the officials to let it be a dogfight. I'll say that too.
Yeah.
Because in the games that they haven't been allowed to do that, they got blown out.
Yeah. So I did a deep dive, like I said. So I'll start with the defense between both Duquesne and like how we match up with them. Defensive efficiency, Fordham ranks third in the A10. Duke's really close. They rank fourth. That's 98.3 compared to 98.8 points per 100 possessions. This is all per KenPom, by the way. Pretty equal in turnover percentage, like forcing turnovers on defense. We rank second. That's one of our strengths of our defense, obviously. But Fordham ranks third, 21.5% compared to 20%. Defensive 2-point percentage. This was something that was a big strength of ours about maybe 3 games ago. We've gone down further than I thought in the rankings. Fordham's first in defensive 2-point percentage at 47.5. We dropped down to 6th at 49%. I was a little shocked by that.
I'm trying to think of the last 3 games. Well, UMass, we got beat in the paint a decent bit because they didn't have many 3-pointers made in that game. It was mainly just them attacking.
I don't know if it was just 3 games, but I just remember, weren't we like first or second in defensive 2-point percentage?
I think we were
first.
We were second total in KenPom, so maybe we were first.
I think in that category, yeah. So yeah, either way, dropped down quite a bit since that point, whenever that was. And then lastly, on defense, Fordham ranks really well in block and steal, and I remember this in the first preview.
I know why we went down. That was before the St. Louis game.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Duh. 70 points in the paint. Yeah,
we like to block out the ugly losses completely from our memory. We just men in black ourselves.
I need to sometimes.
But yeah, I remember this from the first time we previewed. Fordham ranks first in block percentage, and that happened a lot in our game too. Anytime we got in the paint, they were just blocking the crap out of each other, out of us.
And I will say that goes to how the officials are going to call the game. If they are going to let them be physical, they're going to get a lot of blocks.
Yeah, and so that's their big advantage on defense. Duke's only ranked 9th out of the A10 in that. Steal percentage, we're pretty even. Again, Duke's ranked second, 12.6%. Fordham's third at 11%. So any strength of ours on defense, at least, Fordham is either better or right behind us. And there's 2 categories where they're definitely better than us on defense. So defense, it's going to be a good matchup. If I'm a betting man, which I am, I wouldn't pick a side in this game. I would just bet the under. I don't care what the total is. I would just bet the under. Plus, there's no bear. You could still win without betting on Duquesne to win. So
I watched the game in person. I saw Fordham beat us. But you just saying those stats and me knowing Fordham's offense.
That was all defensive numbers, though.
I know.
I haven't even got to the offense, which is ugly.
Knowing Fordham's terrible offense and our offense being above average in the A10, and that's putting it mildly. we are the better team. If you put those things together, we are the better team.
I know. I can't, I think that to myself, but Fordham has had one full season of this where they deserve to be, we deserve to respect them, give
We
them the
do.
utmost respect in this game.
And even when they weren't competing in the top half of the A10, we still struggled against them because of their half-court defense their defense has been a point of pride for years now, even
Yeah.
though they've had different coaches. So I understand it. I've seen it. But at the same time, just looking at the players and knowing the talent, we're better than them. We got to win this game.
All right. So let me get to the offensive numbers because it's obviously in our favor. All again per Ken Palm, offensive efficiency. Duke's ranked 5th in the A10, while Fordham's all the way in 13th. That's 106 points versus 100 with Fordham per 100 possessions. And that's for offensive and defensive efficiency. Ken Palm does this. He has his own algorithm for those. They're slightly different compared to like any regular numbers you can find out there. And then effective field goal percentage, we rank 5th at 51.8%. Fordham ranks 14th. They're not a good 3-point shooting team. That's not where they generate their offense. So that plays a big factor into those numbers. And to segue right into that 3-point percentage, Duke's ranked 3rd, 37.5%. Fordham is dead last at 29% in the A10. So, like you said, the numbers pretty equal on defense. That Fordham has us in a few categories, but on offense, it's pretty clear. Duquesne is a more talented roster on offense, but like I said earlier, defense can lead to offense. So that's how these offensive numbers are probably a little bit better for Fordham than they say they are, because they probably create a lot of transition points.
Yeah. Yeah. I just want to touch on the explanation that there are some fans that still don't understand how we could possibly beat Fordham and then still be in the 5 seed. How the tiebreakers work in the A10, it goes head to head. Now, if there's more than 2 teams tied, it becomes like a mini conference almost, where you take, if it's 3 teams tied, you take all 3 of them head to head combined. So
Yeah.
if St. Louis loses to Dayton in the dubbed ArchBaron Cup, Twitter fans created this concept a few years ago, and it has picked up steam. If Dayton beats them, St. Louis is then tied with Fordham and Duquesne's record if Duquesne beats Fordham. Because we lost to St. Louis and Fordham beat St. Louis, Fordham's overall record between us and St. Louis is 2-1 if we split the series against Fordham, and our record is 1-2. And St. Louis's record, I think, it would be 1. It's either 1-1 or 2-1, but 1-1 is still better than 1-2. So I think St. Louis would be 4th, Fordham would be 3rd in that scenario. If the saving grace that could happen, even if St. Louis loses, is if George Mason wins their game against Richmond, which they're expected to, but Richmond, it feels like they lose games that they should win and win games that they should lose. So I can't trust it. But George Mason wins that game, then our win against George Mason comes into things, 2-2, tied with Fordham. Then it goes to the highest opponent, and then VCU's number 1 seed. We're 1-0 against them. Fordham's 0-1, and that's how we stay ahead of Fordham in that scenario. It is incredibly complex, but all you need to know: if Mason wins and Duquesne wins, we're good. If St. Louis wins and Duquesne wins, we're good. If Duquesne loses, could be a nightmare scenario.
Yeah. Well explained. I didn't even know all of that, so that's good to know. And then just to put a bow on it, what do you think Ken Palm's giving us chance wise to win this game?
Well, we're away, so it'll be less. 43%.
You'll be encouraged. It's 50%.
Wow.
We have a
Wow.
50-50 chance, according to Ken Palm, to beat Fordham. Now, you may ask yourself, well, Alec, then who is he picking to win? He still picks Fordham.
Right. Home
It's
team.
because they're home team, but by 74-73. He always does a predicted score.
Well, that's
yeah.
really high for a score.
And I've been tracking that winning percentage for the last 2 or 3 weeks because I know obviously this was going to come down the wire. Went from, I think the lowest it was 48%. So it's increased.
All right. But I will say this. Ken Palm's prediction of the score, both teams being in the 70s. Go well.
I don't agree with that. I see this like 65, 63. I think this game stays in the 60s.
If there is one team that gets to the 70s,
it better be Duquesne.
I feel good about Duquesne being that team.
Yeah.
So if we do have a high scoring team.
And what's crazy too is so Ken Palm also has a number next, just does his own ranking of every team in the country. Duquesne's ranked 104th in Ken Palm. Fordham is ranked 148th.
Yeah, that's based off strength of schedule.
I know, but it's just seeing those numbers next to each other. You know, you can't help but think, why is Fordham so good? But I do respect them, but they are a weird team, that's for sure.
Yeah. So we'll see how it goes. I mean, honestly, Dambrot has said in previous years he does not like the double bye. He thinks that it's too much rest and worries about his team. Our team in particular has not typically done well with a lot of rest, a lot of time off in between games.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we
That's
do.
A good point. That'll be a spin zone for later.
Yeah, if we do end up in the 5 or 6 or 7 seed and just have a single bye, not the worst thing.
Yeah, exactly.
So, all right, folks, let's get ready for the biggest game of the season, the last game of the season. Put them up.
Go Dukes.
The Dukes are back and now it's time to rise up. Rise up.